and today we are going to be talking about how to install wallpaper. Hopefully today I'll be sharing a few tips and tricks on how I am able to install wallpaper, so let's get into it. Now let's go over the tools that you're going to need to install your wallpaper. The tools I typically use are a laser level, a roller brush and a paint stick, a joint knife or credit card, some wallpaper adhesive because I typically install traditional wallpaper, an X-Acto knife, and if you're anything like me, you're gonna need a roll of napkins because it might get a little messy. Now the next step is picking out your wallpaper. Now if you're having trouble choosing a fun design, I would like to note that I actually do have my own wallpaper collection. So if you don't know where to start, that's a good place to start. The wallpaper behind me is actually one of my designs, and my whole wallpaper collection is full of bold designs. So if you don't know where to start there. All right, now that you pick the wallpaper that you want to install, let's get right into it. So some of you may be asking, how do I even know how much wallpaper to get? And the easiest way to figure this out is just by using a square foot calculator. So what you're gonna do is measure the length and width of whatever walls that you want to put wallpaper in, and you're going to let the calculator do that calculation for you. So let's just say the wall that you want to wallpaper is 10 feet long and 8 foot high. You're just going to enter those measurements into the square foot calculator, and it'll tell you how many square feet you need of wallpaper. And typically when you go to buy wallpaper, it'll tell you how much square footage one roll covers. So say for instance, this is how many square footage I need, and this is what the wallpaper covers. This is how many rolls I would need in order to do my wallpaper project. All right, we got our wallpaper, we got our tools. Now it's time to start. So the first thing that I do before I even touch the wallpaper is making sure that my laser level is all lined up for my first roll. Now, it is very imperative that you make sure that the first roll of the wallpaper is completely straight. This is probably the most important part of the project because if it is not straight, it will eventually be seen in your wallpaper. I always like using a laser level because it makes it so easy, and then I can put the wallpaper on according to where the laser is. Now, if you don't know much about a laser level, I just want to note, if the laser on the level is blinking, that means that it is not level. So you want to make sure that the light is not blinking and it's totally level before you start installing your wallpaper. Now that the laser level is all lined up, it is time to actually place the wallpaper on the wall. Now, before I even apply my wallpaper, I'm going to take my adhesive and roll it on the wall. I like to use this wallpaper adhesive. I've used it for over 30 projects and I haven't had any trouble with it, so this is what I like to use. I also like to get the 5-gallon bucket because I can dip my roller right in the bucket. But if you're someone who doesn't do a lot of wallpaper projects, there is a smaller size and you can just use a regular paint tray, dump it in, and just use that to roll it on the wall. Now, the trick is to get enough on it to where the wallpaper sticks good, but not too much to where when you're flattening out the wallpaper, it's just oozing out the sides. I'll typically dip my roller in the adhesive and just do a couple of good rolls, maybe 2 or 3, make sure everything's covered. And you also want to make sure that you're getting the corners in good to make sure that there's adhesive in every part where you're going to be installing the wallpaper. Now, when I'm installing it, a good tip that I like to use is to roll up the bottom of the paper and only roll out a little bit of the paper so you can kind of work with that first, and then as you get that part on the wall, then you can start unrolling it. It makes it kind of hard when you just unroll it all because then the paper gets stuck on the wall and then it becomes a mess. So just try that tip, see if it works well for you. I also want to note that I always like to put the wallpaper a little past the ceiling line. I do this because all ceilings are not straight, and if you put it right on the ceiling line, you may find that at the end of the wallpaper, if you're lining those patterns up, the wallpaper may not meet the ceiling line like it did on the first sheet. So I just go past the ceiling line, and that way if the wall is uneven, say if it's going in a diagonal, by the time I get to the last wallpaper line, I don't have a blank space from it not lining up correctly. And trust me, most walls aren't straight, so you want to make sure you go past that ceiling line. Now, when you're cutting off those excess pieces, I always like to use my joint knife along with my X-Acto knife to make sure that my lines are straight. I just take the joint knife and use the X-Acto and cut it together, and it creates a very sharp and seamless line. If you don't have that joint knife, your lines may get a little squiggly, and we don't want that. We want it to look professional. One of the more harder tasks may be something like putting wallpaper over an outlet. So let's talk about that a little bit. Now, if I'm installing wallpaper and there's an outlet, typically I'll go ahead and install the wallpaper right above the outlet. And then I will lay the wallpaper over the outlet and kind of decide where the outlet is. I'll put my finger there, lift it up, and then cut a little hole. Now, the little hole that I cut is way smaller than the outlet is, just so I can see. And then I'll place it and then kind of just cut it out based on where the outlet is. The good thing is the outlet cover is much bigger than the hole that you need to cut for the outlet. So I always make sure to remove the cover, and then I can kind of cut around the outlet. And once that hole is cut, I can place the wallpaper down and then put the outlet cover back on so that it looks nice and seamless. When it comes to wallpaper, a lot of people struggle with corners as well. So I just want to talk about that a little bit. Now, I know that not everyone's corner is going to look the same, so I can't give advice for every single corner. But one thing I want to know is, one, take your time. The lucky thing about this wallpaper adhesive is it doesn't dry super quickly, so you have time. I know that sounds simple, but just take your time. Another thing is, when I'm doing corners, I always like to place a little bit of the wallpaper and then I make a little cut based on the corner, and then I cut as I go. The more that you cut the wallpaper, the more that it will go into place. So if there is a diagonal, I'm going to put the wallpaper on the wall and then I'll make a little cut. And then that allows me to put the wallpaper on the wall even more into the hole. And as you cut the wallpaper, it will fit into place. Now, I don't suggest you just cutting the whole thing at once, because you want to fit it in nice and tight. So when I'm putting the wallpaper up, I just cut as I go and cut a little, place it a little, cut a little, place a little, till it's right in the corner and I can make the exact cut that I need for it to fit right into place. Now, that may make a little more sense when you're actually doing the wallpaper, but hopefully that helps. Now, once you get those steps down, it's really just rinse and repeat. You're doing the same steps over and over. And honestly, the best way to get good at hanging wallpaper is just through practice. Now, if you're a little scared to try it for the first time on your walls, I would recommend going out and getting a sheet of drywall or a sheet of wood and just practicing on that first. And then when you feel comfortable, you can do your walls. Hopefully some of these tips will help you on your next wallpaper project, and don't forget to like and subscribe for the next video. All right, y'all, later.